Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I am your host, Cameron Johnston, joined by co-host Jacob Boyers today. Tyler decided he had better and bigger things to do than to be a part of the podcast today, so we will march on without him. Kentucky finds a way to beat Bucknell on Saturday afternoon, 100-72, get to 100 for the second straight time under the Mark Pope era. Jacob, we're going into this Duke game. What were some of your key takeaways against Bucknell?
Yeah, well, first, you got to mention Tyler not being here. Night before the biggest game, and I don't know, at least the last probably 5 years it feels like, especially with the way the tournament's gone for Kentucky. So, pretty big mistake there.
Definitely got to work on his commitment. He came before Duke and he decides not to show up. What's that about?
Yeah, if you can't be excited for this one. No, my takeaways from Saturday are all for the most part positive. Obviously the team struggled a little bit offensively, especially in the first half, but Mark Pope called them out for rebounding, especially on the offensive side. They come out, they 22 offensive rebounds, 57 total. Can't be anything but pleased. When Amari's in there, it feels like he's just going to grab every rebound. So going forward, just got to keep him out of foul trouble, and I think a lot of those rebounding issues will take care of themselves. The other big takeaway for me was I think we're going to see a pattern this year of there's just going to be a lot of guys that, have their nights where they're the leading scorer. This time it was Brea. I expect him to do it a couple more times, but obviously very well balanced offensively. So, those were kind of my big takeaways. They didn't particularly play great. They still scored 100 and won by 28.
That's the crazy thing is I feel like we didn't play our best brand of basketball by any means, and we still win by 28, score 100 points, and we didn't play well. Like you said, Pope emphasized all week, rebounding, especially getting to the offensive glass. I think he said, per game he wanted to have anywhere from 12 to 14 offensive rebounds per game. Come in here and, like you said, get 22, 57 in total. Well, we out-rebounded them by 22 rebounds. And that was one of the stats, with the exhibition games in that first game that really wasn't – it was kind of lacking behind. I think Pope and his staff noticed that and, put a real emphasis on it. And it was good to see them come out against Bucknell and show, the things that they were working through Wednesday through Friday in practice was shown on a Saturday. I feel like so many times under Calipari, you would hear these things. You'd hear it in the press conference. Hey, we're working on this. And then it would take, months or 4 or 5 games until you saw an improvement in it. It was great to see, almost an instant impact in what Pope was preaching at practice.
You not to, spend too much time comparing, the Pope to what we've experienced recently with Cal, but it's hard not to. You listen to Pope before the game, he's talking about Bucknell going individual player by player, talking about exactly what they do, what Kentucky wants to do to go against them. And then down in Arkansas, you got a coach that's we haven't practiced against zone yet, against a team that plays a lot of zone. So, it's so refreshing. I try not to just harp on it, but, it's completely different and obviously extremely exciting. Kentucky, I still felt like, we talked about, we didn't feel like they played their best. Still shot pretty well from behind the arc. Kobe Brea, he's turning into the guy that when he lets it fly from three, I'm just assuming it's going to go in. I'm not even, just run back, start getting ready on defense. Let's count our 3 points and move on.
Speaking about Kobe Brea, he's already 10 of 12 from three-point range this season. He's already shooting over 80%. The nation's leading three-point shooter came in last year shooting almost 50%, and you're like, oh, man, I don't know how he's going to top that. If he just, replays that season he had at Dayton last year, I think we're all going to take it. I don't think any of us are planning on him shooting 80% for the rest of the year, but like you said, he's one of those guys that, you see the ball going up, you're assuming, just kind of like last year with, Reed and Rob, some of those guys that you kind of just expect to knock it down. He's already turned into one of those guys, and we're only 2 official games into the season. It'll be nice to see, how he does it against a little bit more length against Duke tomorrow, actually. So that'll be good to see. But didn't even shoot very well from three. 13 of 36, and you still found a way to win by 28 points. I think that kind of speaks, we're not just necessarily live by the three, die by the three. We're kind of, it's more nuanced offense than that, and I think that's kind of what it was being labeled as preseason.
Yeah, if I told you coming into the game, like on paper, like is this Bucknell team great? Like probably not, but like on paper, what is it Kentucky's going to struggle with? It's probably a big man. They have the 7-footer that was averaging over 20 something a game coming into this, and then you talk about Kentucky probably doesn't shoot the best. Jackson Robinson, plays okay, but like you probably think like just based off of those stats and like the matchup that this game's going to be a lot closer. Kentucky still, like, there were a couple moments early where, Bucknell would get it down to 14, 15, but there was never really a moment where the game was really particularly close, and then they pull away and win by 28.
It was great to see. Normally, guys come in here, we expect them to get theirs. It was great to see, a game plan built around, stopping their number one option in Noah Williamson. I mean, he went 3 of 12 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3 with 7 points and 5 rebounds. And for a 7-footer coming in to the game averaging 25 and 10, I mean, you're going to take that all day, all week. Hopefully, that'll translate into Cooper Flagg and, Con Keipel and guys like that. A little bit harder to slow them down as against, Bucknell's top guy. But just talking about this team in general, I mean, what more can we say? I mean, Kirk Risa, how about that game that he had? 12 assists. He's already taken shots at Duke. He took shots at Duke during the offseason. Now he's taking shots at Cooper Flagg. I love Kirk Risa. I mean, not even necessarily for the way he plays, even though, my style of point guard is kind of that defensive first, pass the ball guy. And he's one of my favorites already, and it's been 2 games into the season. Feels like he bleeds Kentucky blue, even though he's been a part of 3 games.
Absolutely. He's going to be one of the fan favorites all year. He's going to be that guy. He's going to get – I don't know if we'll see it against Duke. We might. But, there's going to be some games this year where he is just getting under the skin of a really good player on another team, and he is going to draw a technical. He might get one himself, but, he's going to be kind of just that spark. And I mentioned it on the last pod. I love the, pace of play change that, almost comes in when he gets in. They played him and Lamont Butler a lot together, which was something I didn't really expect to see too much. But I liked it. It seemed like it worked. They get a little worse defensively when he's out there, but he is a guy that, you saw it against Wright State, you saw it a little bit Saturday. He'll pass up, he'll lay up at the basket for somebody who's sitting wide open out on the corner. You got to love it.
It speaks to the confidence all these teammates have in each other. There is no selfish play as of right now. Everybody's making the next pass. There was one possession in mind that's just sticking out. I think that we had 6 open shots. We finally swing the ball to get the 7th, and that's when we hit knock down the 3. So, we're not just looking for good shots. We're looking for the best shot and great shots. It's great to see this early in the season, feel that chemistry and camaraderie. But a guy, I feel like we haven't really necessarily talked about all that much. Me and you talked about him off show, is Ansley Almanor. He comes from Fairleigh Dickinson, Nobody really, let's be honest, how many Fairleigh Dickinson games do you tune in and watch? Not many unless they're in a tournament upset.
Saw him beat Purdue the one time.
Exactly. You see him come in for a random upset every now and again, and that's about it. So I didn't really know what to expect from him. And, he's kind of got a weird body build. So you weren't sure, he doesn't look like he's the most athletic guy. So seeing him come in, he's been productive. He was 3 of 8 this game, 2 of 6 from 3, but 9 points, 4 rebounds. He looked like a very willing rebounder in this game. Looked like he was one of the guys that Pope was trying to emphasize that message to about crashing the glass. I know he had a putback off the offensive board in this game as well. So it's good to see that. What do you think about Ansley?
Yeah, me and you talk. We've talked off the air after the last 2 games, and we're like, man, we've gone through and haven't even mentioned him, but the guy just plays well. He's not a guy that, I ever think we're going to be at a point where we're like, wow, he's our best player or one of our best players. But, I just feel like he's going to be the guy all year when he comes in. You kind of know what you're going to get from him. If he's open, he'll knock down some shots. To your point, being a willing rebounder, he'll go out there, he'll play hard, he'll give you, he played 13 minutes this game. I think there will be some games where he plays a little more, maybe some games he plays less, but he'll come in and give you, 12 to 16 really good minutes.
I agree wholeheartedly. We do usually get a little worse defensively when he comes in, but he's not a liability. I think that's kind of what we're seeing, the difference between him getting that eighth, ninth guy off the bench as opposed to, a guy like Trent Noah. That's probably the biggest difference at the time. But I mean, switching over to Amari Williams, he can't have a 13 and 14 point, double-double without getting some shine from us. Five of 8 from the field. I mean, he's got to cut down on those turnovers. You can tell he was trying to make a little bit too many plays. He had 5 turnovers, but I do like to see. I mean, he had one great pass where there was no look, while he's in transition. How often do you see a 7-footer catching it, top of the key in transition and be able to make a pass like that? Willing passer as a big, it's great to see.
The only negative thing I can say about Amari is, to your point, is he likes to dribble a little bit up at the top of the key sometimes. But yeah, you gotta love his passing. You gotta love his willingness to go rebound. We know what he is as a defender with the accolades coming into this season. And then if he can kind of keep hitting those little mid-range jumpers, getting to the rim, 3 of 5 from the free throw line, I would like to see him get those attempts up more. Be a little more aggressive going to the rack. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be, one of our best players all year, and a guy that, I think is going to have some more of those, 13 and 14 point games where, he's probably the 5th guy we mention when we get on here and recap it. He's just going to be steady.
I mean, not to jump ahead, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but is that who you want guarding Cooper Flagg tomorrow night, or who are you thinking?
I think he's got to be the primary guy. I don't know if you can leave him on him all game. He might get in some foul trouble, but they're going to have to throw a few bodies at him. But I would like to see Amari be the main one.
I agree with you completely. We'll dive into more of the Duke game a little bit later. But I mean, we haven't even mentioned Otega Owe, and he was kind of the guy. The first 3 games of the season just completely surprised everybody. I mean, he was scoring, 16-plus points per game throughout the 2 exhibition games and the first regular season game. Has 10 points in this game, 5 boards, 2 steals. I think that's kind of more of what to expect from him throughout the season. I don't expect, to have 20-plus like he was, most of the exhibition games and stuff like that. But having that great, on-ball defender, him and Lamont, while they might not be your scoring output for the game, they can get out, push the ball in transition, and put pressure on the defense. I think they're doing a great job as is, and I think it'll be a good test for them on Tuesday.
Yeah, you talk about him, only having 10 points. I mean, to be honest, I think his game was pretty similar to, how he's played in the preseason games, and then against Wright State, he just, had a couple open threes that didn't fall. Guys are going to have games like that. If he would have went, 2 for 4, he would have been at 16 points and had right around the same stat line. So just a couple shots didn't fall. But, obviously love what he's doing defensively, the 5 rebounds. Anytime you have guards that are willing to rebound, I think it can really take your team to the next level. So, yeah, I mean, he had a couple shots that just didn't fall, but, I thought he played well and looked like the same player for the most part.
And then speaking of guards that are willing rebounders, I mean, Lamont Butler didn't really have many rebounds in this game. I'm not sure what's going on with the finishing around the rim. It seems like if there is a wide open layup to blow right now, he is definitely doing that. So hopefully we'll get that cleaned up and tidied up, because he's leaving a little bit too many points on the board for my liking at the moment. But I mean, then again, like you said, like we talked about Kerr earlier. I mean, even 4 rebounds just for your guard that's supposed to be out pushing it in transition, it's good to see, especially, we're really not getting as much as I thought we would from Andrew Carr to start the season. Not that he's been a disappointment by any means. I think he's still averaging over 10 points per game to start. But, I mean, 3 total rebounds for Andrew Carr, being 6'10", 6'11". I do feel like for us to take the next step as a team, he's going to have to be a more willing and capable rebounder.
Yeah, I feel like he'll kind of get into it. I was hoping he would this would be kind of the game, going into Duke, but he's going to have to against Duke if you're gonna try to win. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's been like a disappointment. To be honest, none of these guys have really been a disappointment in my eyes coming into the year. I think they've all kind of played as well as I hoped, if not better. But if there was a guy you were going to pick out, it'd probably be Carr. Yeah, he'll get there. Like I'm not worried about him whatsoever. But yeah, we will need to see more out of him on the glass.
Speaking about seeing a little bit more, we all know Jackson Robinson. He's going to be great. I mean, he's been, he's the most NBA ready guy on this team right now. Still has I don't know if you agree with this or not. Still, it's a weird looking jump shot, but for the most part, it's going in as of right now. I mean, he only had 14 points in this game on 6 of 14 shooting. But then again, he still helps out in other ways. He had four boards and 2 steals. So even, nights where it's not necessarily falling for him, he still shot right around 40%. So that's good to see that even when, he's not going to be your main bucket getter. It's nice to see how this team can, rally around that and still find a way to score 100 points even when their best guy's not going.
Absolutely. Like, to my point earlier, like, you tell me this team scores 100 with the way they, shot the ball, and then Jackson Robinson only with 14, you take it. And it just shows just how deep we are. And that's what's really exciting about the season. We could go into Tuesday night and, one of our key players could have a cold night, but, you bring Brea off the bench and Kerr off the bench. I think he'll kind of continue to show a little more offensively, or maybe Ansley comes in and knocks down a few threes. Like, there's just so much depth that, just because a guy or two's not, hitting their shots that night, like, you can easily overcome it.
Exactly. I'm scared to see the time where, Amari Williams does get in that foul trouble, kind of like we've led into.
Yeah.
I mean, Brandon Garrison, he played well in this game, only played 19 minutes, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. You can see that, I don't want to say he's a working project. It seems like that's what everybody is saying. You can tell there's still things for him to iron out. Looks like he's very capable and willing rebounder. Easily our second best rebounder at the moment. I think it'll be good to see, when Amari does get taken off the court, if he is the guy that we put Cooper on, if we're guarding Cooper Flag with Brandon Garrison, or if we maybe even try to roll him with Otega Owe, even though that would be a pretty decent height mismatch for us. So I'm interested to see that. But I do like, kind of the progress I'm seeing from Brandon Garrison.
Definitely, and something I was going to bring up, I don't know if you saw one of the latest mock drafts has Garrison going 38, and he's the highest player on our team right now. So just talking about talent, as far as what the NBA guys are looking for, he's the most talented at this point. So, I do think that there's obviously a high ceiling there. McDonald's All-American, we know it. Right now looking possibly to get drafted. So if he can kind of continue to be that guy that comes in when Amari, goes to the bench, there's worse guys to have on your bench, right? Coming off and all McDonald's All-American and potential NBA players. So
yeah, we've seen worse guys coming off the bench in the last couple of years. I don't want to mention anybody named Lance Ware or something like that. But,
love Lance. You can't talk bad about Lance. He would come in and be ready to fight anybody.
It's good to see. I mean, Brandon Garrison, he's got a good-looking shot. As of right now, they just haven't fallen yet. I think that's kind of one of those things. He's just got to see one go through the hoop. Got to see a mid-range go. You can see that he was, especially in the exhibition games, I think he took 5 threes between the 2 games. So you can see that he's willing, Pope trusting to make those shots. Maybe not necessarily as much as guys like Kobe Brea, but is there somebody in the country more that you expect to hit a 3 right now than Kobe Brea?
No, I don't know how you can. Like I said, I mean, when he puts it up, I'm already thinking, run down the other end, get your defense set up. We don't even got to go to the class for him.
Exactly. And it was good to see, we've been kind of hammering this home, all of these podcasts, but I mean, there was really only true 7 mid-range shots in this game as opposed to us taking 36 threes. So it's good to see, that change. I mean, we're still, whether we want to agree with it or not, we're still in the Cal mindset. We haven't seen, a full season play out. So it's still, I mean, I got to watch a little bit of that Arkansas-Baylor game and seeing them not be able to function against zone like these guys had never seen it before, which he said they hadn't practiced against it. But, I mean, it's November. So, man, that took me back in a little bit of a time portal right there. So it's good to see this modern offense coming back to Kentucky.
It's like, go look at our shot chart and then go look at Arkansas's. Like, again, it's 2 completely different sports. And, like, I know I touched on it earlier, but when you have Pope breaking down each individual player in a pregame show against Bucknell, and then you got another coach that's like, we don't practice against zone. Like I just, like, the 2 styles are just, it's night and day. And, Pope's our guy right now, and I'm loving it.
It's good to see. I mean, all these assistants that we have right now are, I feel like, kind of making the difference. They most of the time, they're unsung heroes. Guys like Cody Feeger, Mark Wright. I mean, these guys that Mark Fox, my bad,
Yeah.
Mark Wright. Yeah,
You-
but I mean, it's good to see that we actually have assistants that are sitting up there and we're talking to Pope in the huddle. We're sitting there drawing out of bounds plays. We're doing stuff that Brad Calipari, no
That's what I
shots
was gonna
here.
say.
He's just a clipboard holder. We don't. It's glad to not have five assistants that are doing that. It's good to see that we've gotten a good staff around Pope to help him, and that's usually the sign of an intelligent coach. Is he going to bring guys that he thinks are as intelligent as him or even more intelligent to help him out?
Absolutely. I was about to say until you said it, like, you mean to tell me Cody Feger and Brad Calipari aren't doing the same game breakdown prior? Or good old Steakhouse Chen Coleman?
I can't see it.
So, I mean, it is. It's awesome. And then, like, especially towards the end of the Cal era, like, I never listened to the pregame shows or postgame interviews. Like, we've all heard it a million times. It was the exact same thing every week. There was nothing to gain out of it. But, like, when you listen to Pope, man, all I can think about is, like, this guy is smart. Like, he's not just basketball smart. Like, everybody knows how, but, like, just he's so smart. And, you hear him talk, and then he talks about, like, what him and the assistants are talking about. And it's just, it's so refreshing to get some of that.
It's weird when I'm listening to a basketball interview and he says some word that I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So I got to look it up.
You're gonna pull your dictionary out.
Yeah, I gotta look up some words that he says. And with Calisms, everything you heard Cal say, it was you're trying to decipher just like what he's meaning. I think everybody's seen that like 50-second clip of him after the first Arkansas presser where he's just making random noises and doing stuff like that. And he's like, go make a three, block that ball. It's a lot, more refreshing to hear, set plays coming, stuff like that, rather than just hearing, I'm not taking you out. He says I'm going to take him out. I'm not taking him out.
Well, and then, like, I think it was after Wright State, it was either the post game right after or the next day, but, like, Pope's breaking down, like, which part of your brain, like, controls, like, different emotions and which one controls your ability to shoot, and it's like, holy cow, like, how did we get here?
I have no idea how we got here, but I'm happy we got here. I don't know. If you would have asked me, 6 months ago if I would have been happy about where we're at, I'm not sure I would have said yes, but I'm looking at it now, buying in is all we can do. And, we bought into, the right guy. I saw a video where I think he stood after the game for an extra 45 minutes, signing all the fans' basketballs that came to the game. Like, that's something that he doesn't have to do. He's already got to do a radio show, post-game conference. He has to do all this stuff where he already has to stay out there. But to sit there and, sit for 45 minutes while fans are just piling through. And I saw those two full middle sections were full, so it had to have taken him some good amount of time to get through. I think it just kind of speaks to the guy that we've gotten and the guy that we want to have here.
He gets it. I heard on KSR today they were talking, and, they were talking about how much later their show starts compared to when he wraps up, and they were like, it was 35, 40 minutes after he was done with his post-game show, and he's still out there signing it. Like, the guy just gets it. We touched on it last pod, but, like, the guy, he just, like, there's not, like, a blemish on his record right now. Like, I know we've only played 2 games, and it's Wright State and Bucknell, but, you blow them both out. You're playing a beautiful brand of basketball. The way he talks to media, the way he talks to fans, it's all just completely refreshing. And, since being hired, like, he hasn't done one thing wrong. He's killed it.
No, there's nothing more you could ask from him, whether it comes from, like, PR, recruiting, in basketball games, nothing you could have asked from him that he hasn't done at this moment. I had the chance to meet him outside the Joe Kraft Center, met him with my mom. My mom told him some stories. Mark Pope did say he'd like to come on the pod, so we'll have to get that figured out. I know we're in season, so it's definitely going to be a little tough. I'm sure he's got a little bit better things to do than to be talking to the two of us.
We can't get him right after the Duke game. We can't fly up there and get him on the court.
He might just fly us out to Atlanta to watch that big farm arena. But yeah, you brought it up. Let's go ahead and let's start to dive into this Duke game a little bit. Duke,
let's go. We're here.
We're finally here. This game and, of course, the Arkansas game on February 1st are going to be the two most talked about this season. One for other reasons. This one is just because you're playing one of the most talented teams, to come out in probably since that Zion Duke team that we had to play as well. Hopefully this team matches up a lot better than that year.
They have 3 projected top 15 picks right now. Obviously, Cooper Flagg being the big one, but they got the other 2 guards that are both projected in the top 15 in some drafts, mock drafts. So it's going to be a war, but I absolutely cannot wait. Just quickly, I think the big thing is just going to be the number of bodies we can throw at them, right? Also, Cooper Flagg, he's 18 years old. He's got to go up against, Amari Williams, who's a grown man. There's going to be some physicality stuff that I think we're able to throw at him. And it's like roles are reversed, right? We saw all the time Kentucky having the very young, talented team rolls out in the Champions Classic, and we, play a team that's just much more physical and, kind of bullies us around. But I'm excited. I feel like a little kid on Christmas. I don't know how I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. 9:30 tomorrow cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, it's very weird being on this side for spending 14 years in the cream of the crop talent, and then looking over at Duke, and they had. This recruiting class that they brought in, just in general, was phenomenal. Obviously, they talked about Cooper Flagg. They had 3 other 5-stars and then 2 4-stars that came in as well. So, the number 1 class in the nation, of course. We're going to see, what what we're kind of used to, what other teams are used to playing against us. Other teams came in and said, they're not physical enough. These freshmen aren't physical enough. Well, now we are the physical team. So it's going to be good to see, us try and enforce that brand of basketball. Hopefully, we're obviously Duke's first test. Hopefully, we're Cooper Flagg's, welcome to the NCAA.
It'd be awesome. And I think we will. I predicted before the season a win. After, first 2 games, I still feel very confident in that. Kentucky opened as a 6-point underdog. But, there's a lot of people, a lot of the national media is saying, don't overlook this Kentucky team against Duke. Maybe we don't win, but we're going to come out there. We're going to be physical. We're going to make shots. These guys aren't going to be scared. They played a lot of college basketball coming into this. Maybe not at this level, this showcase, but, got a lot of guys that have played in the NCAA tournament. Got Jackson Robinson, who went to Kansas last year. We got some guys that are not going to be scared of the moment, and hey, we got guys that are going to put the ball in the hoop, and I think it's going to be high scoring, but I think we can get it done.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to bring up. Jackson Robinson went to Allen Fieldhouse and beat them by 20 and kind of ran them off the road court. And this is at the State Farm Arena. This isn't it's not a Duke home game. Well, it's not a home game for us. Just a neutral playing field. It's kind of more like an NCAA tournament game. And Lamont Butler's played in the biggest tournament game you can play in. So this isn't going to be anything new for him.
Yeah.
It's going to be so refreshing to see this team. Just looking at going off of some of the Duke stats for the first 2 games of the season. Other than Cooper Flagg, who's averaging 15.5 and 9 boards a game, they got Con Keipel, who's another one of their 5-star recruits this year, freshman. He's averaging 18.5 and 3 boards and 2 assists a game. And then Tyrese Proctor is probably their best guard. He's averaging 12 points, 5 boards, and 1.5 assists. As of right now, they're only averaging 18 assists per game as a team. And I feel like that's something that we can kind of exploit. Right now, they're not really passing the ball. They're really not cohesive as a unit. I think that's something that being, that senior-led team, guys that have played a bunch of basketball like we've talked about, is something that's really going to help us on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and not to take, another shot at the previous coach, but, it's going to be, the first time. I feel like we have a huge in-game coaching advantage in this game. Versus John Schneider, finally, we got, I think, the best coach that's going to be on the floor. That's going to be a huge advantage. You don't think he's going to find ways to take advantage of them not working the ball around, but, and then on the other end with our ball movement, keeping those guys nonstop running on the defensive side, Pope's going to find a way to, get our guys open looks, but also not put us at a huge disadvantage on the defensive side.
Think about ways that, Kentucky freshman teams have lost. We lose on traditional things like back cuts, giving up a bunch of back cuts, stuff like that, where freshmen are playing overzealous, things like that. There's not going to be anything that Pope sees that he's not going to try and exploit. I mean, this is the biggest test for us for another couple weeks until we get to go face Gonzaga. So this is what's going to, good or not, this is what the national media is going to talk about, is how good either Kentucky and or Duke plays in this game. And that's kind of going to be your narrative until you get that next chance. So I think there's a lot to be said for how big this game is for Kentucky and for Coach Pope, especially considering we're 1-7 against Duke in the last 8 matchups. And that's
Crazy.
just disgusting to think about. I didn't want to say it. I really didn't even want to say it. I didn't even want you guys to have to hear that. But it has to be said. We got to get that to 2-7. And also, our championship classic record is awful.
Horrible.
We have to start getting that. Hopefully, all this fresh, new era. Let's just start off 1-0 in the Champions Classic under Mark Pope.
So let me ask you, Cam. You picked before the season. You picked Duke. After 2 games of what you've seen from the Cats, you ready to flip it and talk yourself into it?
I was going to talk myself into it regardless, just as a fan that has no control on whether the outcome is how they want it or not. So I'm going to talk myself into Kentucky winning this game, like I will every game. So that's why I did the preseason prediction was to a day out from the game, because then I do it even with the football team. No matter even they're 3-6. I still
they're going to go beat Texas in 2 weeks.
Do we have a chance at Texas? I try to talk myself into that. That's just kind of the unreasonable actions of a fan. So that's why we had those preseason predictions. But yeah, go ahead. Let me hear your prediction and the final score if you got one.
Yeah, high scoring game. I think it's going to be a close one. I'm thinking right at 86-81. We're going to give up some points, but I think we're going to find a way to fill it up too.
I think we're going to find a way to score a lot in this game. Actually, for some reason, I really don't know what it is. I got a feeling this is kind of going to be a welcome to the league moment for Flag.
Take a little blowout,
guys. I'm going to go ahead and go 92-76 Kentucky. We put up a lot of points in this game. I feel like some of these guys just catch fire. I think you see Jackson Robinson, he was told he's got to work on that 3-point shot during the offseason. I think he comes in. What better of a way to show it?
This is the game.
This is the game to, put yourself on the map and kind of get yourself from right now he's, a consensus second-round pick. You go out there, and we've seen it in years past with Malik Monk having big games in games like this. This is what puts you on that radar. It gets the draft analysts looking, and then they start paying attention to you all season. So I'm expecting a big game from Jackson Robinson, and I expect Amari Williams to, be that dominant guy on the boards. And then, my kind of sleeper for this game, I don't even know if he's necessarily a sleeper at this point. I think Ansley will find a way to just kind of casually sneak in 15 points and 5 rebounds, where at the end of the game, you're not going to be like, oh man, Ansley won us this game. But you're going to look back and he's going to have a good stat line to help us.
Yeah. To your point of Jackson Robinson and the NBA scouts, what better chance, right? Think about all the scouts that are going to be there to watch all these top talents from Duke, all these 5-star recruits. But if you go out there and you play well against them, your name will start to creep up there into the end of the first round. So huge opportunity for him. Like we talked about Garrison and a couple of these other guys that want to try to make a roster down the line. I did want to ask you, so it sounded like who's your MVP pick for this game? Is it Jackson? You think he has the kind of breakout game?
I'm going to say it's Jackson. He went 2 of 8 from 3 in the last game. I'm going to say he finds a way to spring home at least 5. He goes 5 for 8. And I think he gets to the rim. I think he tries to be a little bit more emphatic this week, where he's kind of, he's kind of let his teammates take the lead a little bit, kind of just been, that just the add-on guy. I think he kind of shows hey guys, this is my team at the end of the day.
Love it. He would be my pick to lead the team in scoring for this one, but I think at the end of the day, I think we're going to be talking about the MVP of this game is going to be Lamont Butler. I think he's going to speed Duke up. He's going to speed those guards up, force some turnovers, rebound well, play defense when we leave, and we're like, wow, he really held those guards in check.
The great thing I think about that 1-2 punch we have with Lamont and Kerr is that, Lamont puts pressure on you the entire length of the court. And then as soon as Lamont goes out, you're like, oh, man, thank God. But then, no, here comes Kerr. He just has a different way of doing it. And he's pressing the floor on offense. And it's just I mean, they haven't been Cooper Flagg. I mean, he had cramps and was out for some of this game that they just played over the weekend. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something to look out for. These guys aren't conditioned that well. I mean, these are guys that have played 5+ years of college basketball versus 2 games in college basketball. I think you got to take it early. I think if you want to win this game, you just got to be pedal to the metal from the start. Have Lamont pick up somebody from full court. Kind of let him dictate the start of this game.
And you got the bodies to do it, right? You can go out there and the whole time you're out there, you play as hard as you can because, hey, we got Kirk Creasy to come in for you. We got Brea to come off the bench. You got, Ansley. You got Brandon Garrison when these big men get tired. Like, you got enough bodies. You can go pedal to the metal for the whole game. And, knock on wood, I think you just got to stay out of foul trouble, especially with Amari.
That's exactly what I was going to go to next. I would say my biggest worry about this game is, first off, it's Andrew Carr's defensive ability. I mean, there's going to be parts where I think they're going to make sure they get him in pick and rolls with Cooper Flagg and guards like that. I think they're going to, John Shire, he's a good coach. He's going to try and figure out ways to get, Andrew Carr on the ball. So trying to find ways around that. And then we got to make sure Amari stays out of foul trouble. I'm not sure if we have a good chance in this game if we're just rolling out with Brandon Garrison and Andrew Carr eating up too many minutes.
Yeah, you got to keep him out of foul trouble, but I think Pope will find ways to disguise it. So, like to my point earlier, I think we're going to play Amari on Cooper Flagg a lot, but there's going to be, he's going to find a way to kind of get him away from him and keep him out of foul trouble. But, on the other end, that could work both ways too. You're putting Amari up top. If Cooper Flagg's guarding him, he could get a couple cheap fouls, and Cooper Flagg may be sitting over there on the bench for most till the end of the first half. So.
Exactly what they're going to try and do to Amari. You kind of want to flip the script on Cooper and, Con Keipel, some of those guys, get them in early foul trouble, let them see them get the side of the bench and, not be able to get in any sort of rhythm. I mean, with all that being said, before we wrap up here, got any trash you want to talk to Duke fans or anything you want to say before this game? Anything you need to get off your chest?
Man, we'll let Kirk Creasy keep talking it. We'll let him go out there and congrats to Cooper Flagg, number 1 overall pick. Well, we've seen it. Number 1 overall pick. That doesn't mean anything for the Champions Classic.
It doesn't mean anything. What about Kerr coming out and saying stuff like that? I mean, it's awesome to see, and it's great to have one of those guys, one of those edgy guys on our roster. Feels like we haven't had anybody like that for a while that other teams despise for that reason alone. So it's great to see. Anything else you got?
Yes, quickly. You think the guy that went face to face with Luka Doncic and talked crap to him is going to be scared of Cooper Flagg? That ain't going to matter to him.
No, it ain't going to matter. Especially, I mean, Luka's 1 of 1, so I don't think Cooper is going to is anywhere close to Luka Doncic.
If you're not scared of that dude, then Cooper Flagg's going to be nothing.
All right, Big Blue Nation. Well, that's all we got here for the Cats Talk podcast. Tune in tomorrow night on ESPN to watch your Wildcats take on the Duke Blue Devils. Tip is scheduled for 9 p.m. Eastern now. It's probably more like 9:15, 9:30, like always in the Champions Classic. I might have to make sure, I get a little bit of I might have to get a second dose of coffee or something. Normally that's my bedtime normally. So I'll make sure.
Once that ball tips, adrenaline will be there.
Once I see him out there warming up, I'm ready to go. I damn near get the energy to go out there and play myself. I don't know why. I get more enthused, sitting here at the house by myself. I'm out here. I find myself in some defensive slides out here, getting hands up, closing out. So, if Pope ever needs an energy guy, that might be me. I'll be the guy at the end of the bench, getting hands up, stuff like that.
Love it.
All right, let's hope the Kentucky Wildcats can get a win tomorrow night at the State Farm Champions Classic in Atlanta, Georgia. That is all we've got. I'm Cameron Johnston. He is Jacob Boyers. Make sure to check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. We are on there. That's all we got. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.